Alright, welcome back. So a couple things I want to add to this. Firstly, some signs. So probably right here is where I'm going to add them. You can add them here, I guess. So let's start with a cube as usual. Okay, and then gonna add another cube as well. I'll probably just delete that side. And just add this here. Maybe that's a bit thick, so I'm gonna go into vertex select mode, select this area. Okay, something like that. My mirror is messed up a little bit. Okay. And so basically this is going to be like the sign. So we need some text over here, right? So let's add in a text object. It's not in mesh, it's just this text here. Now text objects kind of work a little bit differently. They're just 2D objects by default, but you see this little A here? This is the text settings, and then you can extrude this a little bit, and that'll add some depth. I just went with like a super generic name, like shop for the first one. This font is not very good, so I'd recommend going with a font like Book Antiqua. So to change the font in these font settings here, you can click on this folder here. That'll bring up your fonts. And if you're using Windows, you should be able to search Book Antiqua, and then you'll see this. Just go with the regular one. Okay. And now we can just duplicate this. And then just go with like some other generic name like Tom's. And then let's just do Dill's Bakery. And then you can hit enter just like a text editor, and that'll put it on the next line. Need to kind of scale this down. So now we can just grab all this and attach it to the building. We can add some doors now. So to do that, we can just start with a cube. I'm not going to go with anything too fancy. I am going to add in a loop cut here. And just extrude that out a little bit. that. Edge select mode, select this edge. Then just move that in a little bit, although there's not much room to do that, frankly. Let's just duplicate this now. Actually, yeah, I'm actually just gonna inset this, so select this face here, and then press I, just E, and then go in a little bit, but not past where the other side of the door ends. And now we can start thinking about UV unwrapping and texturing everything. This is kind of a boring process in my opinion. Just gonna adjust that a little bit because my sizing is a little bit off. Now we can just UV unwrap everything. We already UV unwrapped the sidewalk. So let's UV unwrap everything else now. First, let's make sure that our scale is applied on everything. So let's just select everything. Control A scale. And from here, I'm just going to UV project every individual object. Maybe I should have done it earlier in the case of this one because I have to do it multiple times now. And I probably did some of them twice. By the way, curves cannot be UV projected. So if you try to hit A, U, nothing happens. If you need to UV project a curve, you're going to have to right-click, convert to mesh, and then you can UV project it. In my case, I'm just going to use like a gold metal material, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we can think about creating our materials, but first let's assign our texture sets, or material slots, as you might know them. Oh, I forgot the window here. Oh, I guess I didn't apply my solidify here. And I'm also going to want to add a loop cut there, press F. Okay. So first, let's create our glass material. So this is going to be used by our windows and our doors. Or rather, just the material like name rather. That way we can use this material for the other objects. So like if we like select this object, you can see the glass in the drop down there. Let's just Control I and then assign. And then I think I used the same material for the door frames and the window frames. So I'll just call this like frame. And let's actually just assign those now. So we already assigned it here because if we select frame, you can see that this area is selected. That's the area that has this material on it. And then if we select glass, you can see that it's just the center part where the glass should be. So let's do the same thing here. And then I want to have two different walls on this on the main building. So let's assign this section right here to wall 02. And then this is just wall. So let's go wall 2, assign. And then now this bottom section is wall 2. This top section is wall 1. That's floor is whatever. It's not going to be visible anyways, but just for cleanliness, I'll put it as wall 2 as well. Then we have roof, which we can assign separately as well. And then I think for these pillars, I'll just assign wall 2. And then in these doors here, it's not really going to be visible, but just I'll just put the backside here, depending on what type of glass material you want to go with. For mine, I actually just went with like a green with like a low roughness. Sometimes if you just use like a dark material, then it will look like glass, even if it's not even close to using the real world properties of glass, like, transparency and all that. So you may just need to assign it to the front, but if you want it to be transparent, then you can assign it to the back as well. Okay, same thing here. Then I'll create here. Just link materials on that. And then for this one, so I'll just use dark with a lower roughness. Okay, so I think we're all set up on that. Let's do curve. All right. So let's go to the shading tab now. And we're going to be in here for quite a while. So one thing you can do is hover over a section. So in our case, the shading section, and then press Control Space, and that will maximize the view of it. And then just hit Control Space again to go back in here. You could also go into the 3D viewport. So hovering over the 3D viewport, Control Space will maximize the view of the 3D viewport. So we have our materials here. Let's just start with the sidewalk because that's what I had selected. And if you click on the principled BSDF here and then press Control Shift T, it will bring up your file explorer. And you can see this principled texture setup here. This is from the Node Wrangler add-on, by the way. This allows you to set up your textures really quickly. So for the sidewalk here, I'm going to use this brick floor. And what you want to do is select all of the textures that you want to use for this material. So in this case, it's going to be all the ones from this folder. And then just hit Principled Texture Setup. And you can see that it automatically connected the roughness and the normal and the base color, and it automatically added this mapping as well. Now it didn't do the ambient occlusion, but we can add that pretty easily. Just add in a mix RGB and then set it to multiply. I mistakenly said that this should be non-color in a previous video, but it turns out that you should use sRGB for ambient occlusion and then just plug that into color 2. And now if we hit Control Space, you can see that this sidewalk texture is applied here. Now let's do the same thing for the other materials. So let's do the curb. I'm going to use this brick 4 for this. And then for the wall, I'm going to use this beige wall. This one, I'm also going to add in a hue saturation, this wall 2 here, and then just desaturate it a little bit. We can make adjustments later when we actually see what we're doing. And then for the glass, I think I just used a dark green. And then my usual strategy of just using like a noise and then Control T there, and then plugging the object into the vector, and then creating a group here, and then plugging all of these into the group input. That's what I'd recommend doing again, because we're going to use this group a bunch of times. Oh, I guess switching materials here kind of messed something up here. Let's just set this back to sidewalk. So looks like we need to set up our door material here. Yeah, I'll just add a new one. Okay. Let's do this. And then the tiling, I think. Let's. I was looking at the wrong one. About 2. By the way, you can click or hold click and then drag down to select like all of these 3. Maybe 2 or 3. Same thing for this other wall. And then the curb, I think I'm going to change to like 0.2. You can see that it's kind of weird because we don't have our separate bricks. If you know that the camera is going to be really close to this, then it's probably worth spending the extra time to just create the separate bricks. But in my case, this should be fine. Maybe a 0.3. And then maybe I'll do some adjustment. Yeah. So that should be fine. Okay. And then here, I think I'm going to set the text color to black. And then just select these. And then link materials there. Maybe I'll set these to a darker metal. Let's see how that looks in cycles now. And let's just add a sun real quick. And it's actually looking pretty good. In the next part, I'm just gonna kind of make some other refinements to the textures. This sidewalk doesn't look quite right yet. And we'll be setting up a scene using this building.